Welcome to What Are You Sporting About podcast, a podcast about business, employment, sports, and entertainment to help educate, support, and guide you to your next level. Here's your host, attorney Sivonnia DeBarros.
Hello, guys. I am back with you today for another dynamic episode of What Are You Sporting About? So before we dive in with our new guest, Mr. Reid Meyer, I want to invite you to get your access to the NIL Combine that wraps up in July. So many great nuggets, so many moments of transformation and ahas for different people who showed up. And look, if you think that this information is not for you, let me just tell you who was there, okay? Entrepreneurs, experts, financial experts, lawyers, parents, and student athletes. So everybody got something out of this. Go ahead right now to NIL Combine All Access. Actually, bit.ly/NIL Combine All Access. That's all caps, and you'll be able to get in on the amazing information that we have for you. So now, without further ado, it is my pleasure to welcome you, Reid, to the What Are You Sporting About podcast. I'm super excited to hear more about your company and what you guys are doing for athletes all alike around this country. So go ahead and just tell me a little bit about who you are, and then we'll dive in from there.
Awesome. Yeah. Thank you so much, Sivonnia. Super excited to be chatting with you today. I'm a former college baseball player turned college counselor, and now am the co-founder of a company, Athletes to Athletes, that is designed essentially to help high school kids make that transition into college in a more holistic way as a student athlete rather than only focusing on athletics.
Awesome. And you are the co-founder and CEO of a company called Athletes to Athletes. And when you reached out to me through a mutual friend, I just loved what you were telling me about this company. So I want you to educate my viewers on, like, what is it that your organization do, and how did you get into this field, and technically what's your hope that Athletes to Athletes could feel, in terms of the college market?
Yeah, absolutely. So Athletes to Athletes was founded sort of on my own personal experience as a college athlete. So I was in a very fortunate position to be pretty well recruited as a baseball player in high school, and had a pretty healthy amount of resources available to me to investigate different schools and visit different places. And to be honest with you, I kind of got my butt kicked by the whole process. I was very reactive about it. I focused really a lot on the athletics component of what my college experience was going to be, and not really on everything else that makes up the other 80% of what being a college person is. And so I ended up going to 4 schools in 4 years. Only played my sport for the first 2 years. Ended up quitting my sport entirely from burnout and just mental health struggles and different problems like that by my sophomore year. And so now I'm a full-time student, and I kind of have to re-identify myself as a junior in college, because I sort of put all my eggs in this athletics basket. And when that didn't work out, I didn't really know what to do. So as a part of kind of my own healing process, and speaking with other athletes that I worked with, came to find out that, this struggle isn't necessarily a me problem. It's a student athlete problem. And so we founded Athletes to Athletes to help address that specific issue that we see in high school kids that are trying to make that transition to college. We think it's really important for kids to focus on every piece of the college experience and make a decision based on all of those pieces, rather than only focusing on who's going to give you the biggest scholarship or what's the most prestigious quote unquote brand name school for your particular sport. While all of those things are incredibly important, and we understand that as former college athletes ourselves, we also understand that if you don't have a degree you're excited about, if you're not living in a city you're excited about, if you're not putting yourself in a position to develop as an individual and develop into the person you want to be, then you're not making the most of those 4 years of that opportunity. So we're really trying to help empower student athletes and let them know that, listen, you can be a highly competitive athlete and you can focus on this piece of who you are, but we're not going to sacrifice all these other aspects of ourselves as an individual just so that we can go say that we played at a Big 12 program or an SEC program or whatever it might be. So that's really the goal that we're trying to accomplish is we want all of our kids to come through and when we talk to them in their first year of college, we want the third thing that they tell us to be how awesome their sport is. We want them to be excited about every aspect of what they're doing.
I absolutely just love all of that because it is something that is extremely important. Sometimes, let me say this, when you are a child who is very athletically gifted, sometimes the roadmap for you begins to, start to be created by other people and groomed by other people, right? So technically, that may be your next obvious move, right? And so then the process becomes, okay, what is the best school to go to that can only really help the student athlete to navigate all of the athleticism, but not necessarily the emotional, the professional, the communication aspect of that athlete, all the things that can help them to be better people and to also excel professionally in life, right? So before I dive in deeper to that, I do want to ask you one question. This is something I love asking all of my guests that come on here. Outside of athletes to athletes, is there anything specifically that you are sporting about, and what would that be?
Oh man, what am I sporting about? So actually, this might be a good one. I am sporting about sandlot baseball. It is a movement that has sort of grown in the Austin area of Texas and kind of grown into a national community grassroots, whatever you want to call it, growth thing. And it is a bunch of 21 and over men and women playing wood bat, hardball, loose bases baseball. And so that has been a way for me to reinvigorate myself in a sport that I loved, that I sort of fell out of love with in college and have come to really build a new relationship with. And so I have been able to meet some incredible people, make incredible friends, travel to crazy places where my Sandlot baseball team is going to the Field of Dreams in October to play on the pinnacle baseball field. So I think for me, kind of tapping back into sport as a love as opposed to sport as a business has been something that I have really enjoyed sporting about.
That's good stuff. That's good stuff. Oh my gosh, that was a nugget. That was a mic drop because you know how often the things that we love turn into work and then we just start to resent it. And I think that's the story for a lot of people. It also seemed to be the narrative that athletes to athletes is trying to rectify, right? By looking at the four corners, if you will, of the person, right? All of the different things that make us who we are, make us unique, that also make us inherently and uniquely positioned for greatness, for whatever that means for all of us, right? One of the things that you approached me with was 40 versus 4. So what does that mean in the sense of the college scene, in the sense of professionalism, in the sense of transitioning into college but also transitioning out of college? Why is that important for athletes to recognize this concept of 40 versus 4?
Yeah, we talk a lot about that 40 versus 4 with our kids and our parents especially. And I think it kind of starts with the base idea of, what is college and what do you want to get out of college? I think so many folks, like we talked about earlier in the podcast, they see this opportunity for college athletics and it is amazing. It can provide you a ton of financial opportunities, a ton of career opportunities, but you need to be in a position to take advantage of that. And you need to turn that experience into something that you can, in fact, sort of project out into the rest of your life. So in no other scenario that I can think of in real life do we tell anybody to effectively liquidate your assets, put all your eggs in this for college purposes, this pro sports basket to hope that works out. And then, okay, well, what's your plan B? Nobody really talks about plan B because that means you don't care enough or you're not invested enough in your sport or whatever it might be. You would never ask somebody to do that for a job or for something else in their own personal life. It's this unique world that we live in where we've created college athletics as this space where you can just effectively drop everything else, only focus on this one thing. And then there's been this mantra of like, oh, well, we'll just figure it out if it doesn't work. Well, Yes, you can, but you're wasting 4 years of an education and 4 years of an opportunity for networking and 4 years of, let's be honest, leverage if you're an athlete, because that's when a lot of people at that school care about who you are and care about being in your circle. So why not use that as an opportunity to bolster yourself so that when your sport does end, whether you're Tom Brady and you're 40 or you're 99.9% of the rest of us who stopped sometime in college or right after college, and put yourself in a position to succeed well beyond your athletic career in whatever direction you want to go. And I think a lot of people lose sight of that when they get very hung up on, oh, well, this coach is talking to me, or I have an opportunity to go play at this school, or whatever it might be. And that's great. But if that school isn't going to provide you with the opportunities to springboard into the rest of the next 3 quarters of your life that you have to live, then maybe that's not the best place for you to be.
You are so right. You are so right. I think it changes people's mindsets around the concept of investment in time, right? Because you can always choose what you invest your time, your money, your efforts, your sweat equity in, right? But everything, whether you're investing dollars or not, has an ROI. Like, what is that return? Some of us can end up with a deficit. Some athletes end up with issues around mental health, right? Some athletes end up feeling isolated, or their pride has gotten the best of them, so they don't really have a community where they feel safe enough to be able to talk about some of the things that they may be suffering or dealing with. Which means, if we take your 40 versus 4 concept, do the work, figure out what your alternatives will be, do an audit on yourself, on your talents, on what you want out of life holistically, even outside of sport. It doesn't mean that you have to give up the sport or give up working in the sport, but our lives, right? If we are not living inside of this bubble, our lives evolve and they change over time. And you are not going to play forever. So if you invest the time, invest in people and relationships, invest in your education, invest in doing the research on things that matter to you, you can cut down that time in 4 years versus what it would take you to probably pick yourself back off the floor, do all of the, now trying to figure out how you're going to get yourself out of this mental traumatization area of your life because you never planned beforehand. You know what I mean? So I really like that concept. And when you dropped that on me, I was like, yeah, I'm sold. I'm like, yeah, I'm sold. I want you on the podcast. I want you on the podcast because this is what it's all about. Like, I want to bring people like you who not only have been in the position that many athletes have been in, right? You're a former college athlete. I'm a former college athlete. Our experiences are completely different, but you also still bring something so unique and dynamic to the space where it can touch other people to recognize, like, well, I've been doing this all wrong, you know? So I know you guys focus a lot, like heavily on the recruiting process. What have been some things that you've seen outside of what we talked about in terms of the recruiting process? Have you dealt with kind of like issues around coaches, parents? How are they navigating this process, and how are you guys educating at least the village around the student athletes to be able to get in the proper mindset around transitioning into college?
I think the biggest thing when it comes to the recruiting process is demystifying it for a lot of families. I think if you go on Google and you type in "I want to get recruited" or "how to get recruited at insert school here," or whatever it is, you're gonna see literally hundreds of pages with opinions, thoughts. There's companies out there that all they do is content for how to get recruited. There's coaches out there that have different feelings on it and things like that. I think a lot of it is just finding a pace and understanding it a little better and sort of demystifying what that process really is and how that works. So understanding deadlines of when folks can and can't talk to you. If coaches aren't talking to you, are they in a dead period? Are they in a contact period? Can we understand what that is? And we focus a lot of our communication with our athletes around getting closure or getting responses. We're not necessarily, we don't say, hey, we want to get recruited by a coach. We say, hey, we want to make a connection with a coach. Because if you make a connection, then they can see who you are, they can tell you what they think, and we can move in a direction one way or the other. You're not every coach is going to like you, even if you're the number one recruit in the country. We tell all of our families and all of our kids, recruiting is like speed dating. You've got a very finite window to impress a very specific person on a very specific task in a very specific setting. So don't judge yourself or base your ability or your talents based on that one person's assessment of you, but understand that, okay, that happened. That is what that is. Can we move forward with this relationship, or do we need to try something else, or do we need to revisit later? And so we turn it into more of a process than it just being sort of this. Basically, we make it from being a reactive process to a proactive process. We don't wait for coaches to come to us and adapt to what they want to tell us, and adapt to the story that they want to mold for us. We go out, we find out what schools we're excited about. We find out what schools are going to allow us to achieve on these four pillars that we talk about: academically, athletically, personally, and financially. And then we pursue those schools in a way that is respectful, but also consistent, so that we can get a coach's response, make that connection, and then determine whether or not that's a vital opportunity for us to explore. So for kids, I think a lot of it is just making it more more easily digestible, and creating a process around it. For parents, I think a lot of it is really just helping them understand that, listen, your kid's going to college. Like, they're not. This isn't the bigs. This isn't. Yes, I understand there's NIL money out there, and for 0.05% of college students, there's going to really be some life changing efforts that happen there. But at the end of the day, that college degree and the opportunities that they build from that environment are going to give you more long-term effects up and down. So don't vicariously live through your child. And because you always wanted to be an SEC student, try to force your kid to being an SEC student. Y'all are not the same person. You're not going to that school for 4 years. You're not the one who's ultimately going to have to pay those student loans, if there are any. Like, just take a breather and understand that there's a lot of great universities out there that may not be the one that you recognize from down the street. And let's explore some opportunities that's going to allow your child to grow into the person that they want to be for the next 40 years of their life, not the person that you think they should be.
That's dope. And it's true. Sometimes, especially if you are not even just an athlete, but the first in your family to go to college, or the first in your family to go to a major university. I think that parents, and maybe even those around them, can kind of, try to nudge that student on to want to do something just because they want to live vicariously through them. They're excited about it, but they don't necessarily recognize the harm that it can foster in that child, in that student athlete. And sometimes I don't even think the child recognizes it either until it's too late. It's you have all these different thoughts that are, and emotions that are going through you in a moment like this. Like, everything that you've worked for is culminating at this moment, and the pressure is on, it's high. For some people, they're looking at, okay, this could be the end all be all to the rest of my life, right? If I play these cards right. And so I understand it from a student athlete's perspective of trying to figure out what is the college to go to. But from a parent perspective, I get exactly what you're saying too. You have to not necessarily take a back seat, but you gotta chill. Right? You gotta chill and give your kid the space and the opportunity to make the decisions for themselves. And there's also something that's powerful in arming your child with the ability to make a decision like that, right? Because we all have to get into a space where we have the confidence enough, and we have the learned experiences enough to know what is good for us and what is not, right? And we only recognize that once we actually make the decision and see if it's something that we like, and we learn from it if we don't. Do you know what I'm saying? It was something you said though about the NIL and the process of coming or trying to find a school for a student athlete. How has name, image, and likeness changed the dynamic of supporting student athletes in transitioning to college? Because the way you're talking about it, to me, it sounds like it takes a lot of the pressure and the pain points out for student athletes and their parents by already going and looking at certain schools, trying to see if it's going to be a right fit before you even bring it to the student athlete. What if there's a school that was kind of on their target list because of NIL? What are the conversations you're having then?
I think we try to frame everything when we talk to our kids sort of in a process of elimination mindset. So we kind of go down the list, right? So if someone comes to us and says, "Hey, there's a school that's offering this," for example, we haven't had it yet. We've got some younger kids right now, and NIL is obviously extremely new. So anyone who's being approached at the high school level is probably a blue chip athlete that is going to have multiple offers at by all these different things. And so the folks that we have talked to about on the NIL side, though, or folks that have been interested in certain schools because of deals they've heard about, that Texas Tech is a big one in Texas that just recently talked about giving a flat fee basically to the football team for certain community efforts and whatnot, and that's grabbed a lot of people's attention down here. I think we try to backtrack on that and go, okay, that's awesome. That is an opportunity. That certainly is a factor in this decision making process that we do. Now let's back up. Do you want to live in Lubbock, Texas? It's a smaller town. You're about 4 hours away from any big city. That for some people, that's a fantastic aspect. They want to be in a smaller environment. They want to be in a college town. For some people, like myself, I grew up in Fort Worth, Texas. I lived in Austin, Texas. I'm now in Dallas, Texas. So I've clearly bumped around in places that I can get lost in a crowd, for lack of a better term. So for me, that environment was not as good of a fit. And so we just start backing up. Hey, let's think about this environment where we're going to go to school. Will that help you thrive as a person? Hey, is there a major at this school that you're excited about that can put you in a position to do something either with sports or beyond sports that you're going to want to do, for extended periods of time, or could see yourself doing for extended periods of time? Hey, are, these coaches people that you are going to be excited to play for every day, that you feel are going to be a positive impact on you as an individual and as a person, are going to allow you to grow into the person you want to be, or explore the things you want to explore in college? And it's funny, as you start to have that conversation, you'll see it in those kids' eyes. They'll start to get more or less excited about this particular option. And we understand that the financial piece of college, just with the way that tuition rates are hiking and cost of living is hiking, and we could have a whole podcast on how preposterous that is as a whole, but we won't dive into that soapbox. So we firmly understand that piece of the puzzle is extremely important, but we would rather help you find solutions on mitigating that piece if all of these other pieces are going to help you succeed beyond in your life, versus trading, a $10,000 savings now out of your student loan debt to not be in a position to grow as the person you want to grow and lean into places. Because we believe that the long-term effects, and like you said, that return on investment is going to well outpace that initial trade-off right off the bat. And so, we're probably the first time that a lot of these kids start thinking about private schools, because you see the tuition and you see the full cost of attendance, and immediately that sticker shock makes you think, there's no way I could ever do this, or I could ever go to these places. But you also don't, a lot of times people don't think about, the impact of FAFSA and the impact of financial aid for grants, not just loans, things you don't have to pay back. They don't really, a lot of folks don't think about the private loans and the merit aid loans, and I'm sorry, not loans, grants and scholarships that are available at those private schools that you wouldn't see at public institutions and things like that. And now, I'm not going to sit here and tell you that Rice University is going to be cheaper than the University of Texas, right? An in-state public school, if you live here, but you can bring that number a lot closer than you think you can. And if that program is going to provide you the opportunities that you need, maybe that $10,000 to $15,000 swing you decide is worth it. And that now creates an opportunity or an option for you to go in a direction that you maybe didn't think was possible.
No, that's really good advice, and it's very true. I had Brian Leckett, the VP of External Affairs for JUCO, on my podcast a while ago, and this was before NIL was coming down, but we all knew that it was along, down the pipeline, and we were talking about the opportunities of the JUCO level, right? Regardless of whether, I think because JUCO has gotten such a bad name for certain, for purposes of going to JUCO just to play and then try to get yourself into a place where you can then transfer to a 4-year larger college. But sometimes it's just not about that too. It's what you were saying. Are you a person who need that one-on-one attention? Because if you go to a big school, you will get lost in the crowd. You are just another number. You are just another player. Yeah, you may be great, but if you're not like the top, maybe 5, you're basically the furniture in the house. No one is going to really care about you. They're just going to care about how well you can perform, and that's it. Some people can thrive in environments like that. Some people, it can literally just break away at their soul and the very essence of who they are. They need that one-on-one. They need to be able to know that they can go to their professor's office hours whenever, or they can, knock on their athletic facilities doors or advisors doors whenever. You know what I mean? And so it's so important to recognize what environment is conducive not only to my success, but to my mental health, to me as a person. If I'm paying thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars to attend a university, now I'm the person that I was in everybody's office. I didn't care who you were. Like, I'm in your office, I'm using whatever resources are available because it is a major investment. And for most of us, it is the first large investment that we will ever make in our lives, right? And so you have to make sure that every piece of that puzzle is going to work for you and move you into the direction that you need to be for the rest of your life. Like, college should be the stepping stone to where we're trying to get, not something that sets us back for years, right? And I saw that you went to a junior college. How was that experience for you from attending a junior college? I think you played at the junior college level. Is that right? Okay,
Yeah.
go ahead.
Yeah, so I started at Texas Tech University, which is why I know Lubbock so well, as a scholarship athlete. And again, I chose it because it was a Big 12 program. I was being offered scholarship money, so for me, that was pretty much end of conversation. That was my chance. I'm going to do it. Great. Went there for a year. Realized that was not a good fit for me overall. So I went to Weatherford Junior College, which was about 30 minutes outside of my hometown in Fort Worth. And from a junior college perspective, I think junior colleges can be such a hidden gem for a lot of reasons, right? I think it's an extremely cost-effective way to nail a bunch of core classes whenever you're looking into going into four-year institutions. I ultimately ended up transferring to the University of Texas at Austin as a full-time student. Had some opportunities to play baseball, burnt myself out. Again, whole other podcast on that, but ended up just going to the University of Texas, and I transferred 66 credit hours into UT. So I knocked out half of my credit hours at a junior college cost, and then got to go to one of the premier institutions in the state of Texas and finish up my degree with a University of Texas at Austin degree and master's. So that is what I now have on my resume, which was fantastic. And it's a way for folks to potentially, hey, maybe out of high school, grades weren't your thing, or you're a really tough test taker. I think for a lot of people, the ASAT and the ACT can sort of make or break a lot of opportunities for kids, even with this test optional stuff that's going on. And so if you were somebody who just struggled with the test and you had a lot of test anxiety, hey, you can go to a JUCO for a year or two. You can show them how great your GPA is and how you're taking competitive classes, and then transfer into one of these highly competitive institutions in a more non-traditional way. But who cares? You're at that school, you're getting that degree, you're with those people. Who cares how you get there? So I think certainly from an academic side and an environment side, I think junior colleges are underrated. And then obviously from an athletic standpoint, it provides you an opportunity to be on a team and fight for a spot when maybe the athletics piece wasn't where you wanted it to be when you were coming out of high school, or maybe you weren't getting the looks you were supposed to, you felt you deserved or you wanted to get from certain schools. Well, shoot, man, go to a JUCO. Yeah, there might be 80 or 100 people on that team. I think there was for the baseball team that I was on. But if this is something you want to do and something you're passionate about, then you're going to weed yourself through those kids and provide an opportunity. And if you can, that's great, and it builds into something else. And if you can't, you got a really cost-effective way to cut out a lot of core classes and an opportunity to spend some more time investigating other schools and seeing what opportunities are out there and what you may want to do. And to your point, I want to make a super quick aside. To your point about, using college to build up into what you want to be, I think one of the things that we talk about with a lot of our kids is, colleges are for lack of a better term, colleges are using you for your athletic ability when you go as a student athlete. They are benefiting off of you. And we'll use football as an example because all people ever want to write about is college football, even though there's so many other sports out there, but that's what they want to write about. University of Cincinnati, they go from, being a not to be rude, but just sort of a G5, they're over here in the corner team, and now they're competing for the college football playoff. So when they get into the college football playoff, the University of Cincinnati recorded an 11% increase in applications to the University of Cincinnati. If all of that 11% that applied got in and matriculated through the University of Cincinnati, that is a 1.8 billion with a B dollar revenue for Cincinnati. So they have no problem using you to benefit the school and grow that endowment and grow that tuition and grow that interest in the school. So you sure as hell better get your turnout or your return from that school while you're there. Don't be afraid. Like you said, hit every office hour that you can. Take advantage of every opportunity they give you. If you can go study abroad and they'll cover that, or they'll cover most of that and give you an opportunity to see a new country and experience something different during an off season, do that. Like anything you can possibly do at that school, do it. Take it. So that's just, I like to use that. We use that with our families too, where it's like, listen, man, they're making their money off of you, so get something out of this while you're here.
No, it's real. It's really really true. I had a discussion with I was on the track team at USF, one of the head coaches there, and we had a disagreement about something. I remember sitting down and talking to him and saying, you're using my GPA to make sure that there are people who can come to this school, get recruited to this team, right? So I'm an essential piece to bringing money into this university. And during the years that I was there, the women's track team had one of the highest GPAs for women track and field athletes. And I don't know if it was in the state or if it was in the country, but I know we was like hitting some numbers. You know what I mean? And so you have to look at all of that when you come in and you perform in every way. Not just your athletic department gets the benefit of showing, okay, you can come in and compete with elite athletes, but the school as a whole is also using you because it goes into their numbers of the individuals who are there and really showing up and getting the grades, right? Because they're using all of that as recruitment too. If you go to a university website to see what is the median GPA that these students have, it includes everybody. It's not just, different people who aren't student athletes. It includes everybody. So if you're a student athlete and you are doing the darn thing, you are getting the grades, and you're also competing, you might your information may be used multiple different times just as a recruitment tool to get other people into that school. So you're absolutely correct. You are being used. And so it is important that you also use the system that's using you. Utilize everything that is at your fingertips. Reid, this has been so amazing. We're going to wrap up, but I do want to know if there's any tip, advice, other than what you've already shared that you like our viewers to take away from this conversation, what would it be? And you can share that now.
Yeah, I think this is meant specifically for high school student athletes, since that's who we chat with most of the time. But I think any coach or any parents or anybody in the space can hear it and hopefully, promote this message of, for these kids that are going through this recruiting process, we encourage everyone that we work with, whether it's a presentation or we're advising you or whatever, be unapologetically yourself during this entire process. I think it can become really easy to have a coach reach out to you or have a certain school reach out to you and go, oh, these people want me or these people like me, whatever it might be. And so you start to slowly, whether it's conscious or subconscious, sort of mold the way you talk to that person or the way you answer questions or the way that you're willing to trade things about yourself or sacrifice things about yourself that maybe you weren't willing to do beforehand because you think it's going to put you in a better light for this coach or because you think it's going to set you up for a better opportunity for this school. I think it's more important to focus on, listen, this is who I am. This is what my priorities are. This is what my values are. This is who I want to be for the next, 4 and 40 years of my life. As I'm talking to these coaches or as I'm exploring these schools, if that school or if that coach or that environment is not going to allow me to do these things, don't let the prestige of the school or your interest in the record or the mascot, whatever, right? detract from the fact that that school isn't going to let you be who you want to be. Don't let somebody else write your story for you or build up the person you're going to be. You never want somebody else to tell you who you're going to be. So why do it in this opportunity where, quite literally, college is built for you to become the person you want to be. So if you end up at a school because you've sacrificed aspects about yourself, you're never going to have the opportunity to truly do that. So be unapologetically yourself and be okay with wherever that takes you, because you're going to be happy with the results in the long run.
He said it. I mean, that's that's it right there. That is it right there. That is some really great advice. Feels like confirmation. I saw something on social media last night, actually, that said, I can't recall it verbatim, but basically, when you find the courage to be you, be who you are, and you're really stepping into that mold of self-care and self-worth, there will be some people who will be upset with you because they benefited from your brokenness. And I think that's important to learn early on. And it's so in line with what you just said. Be you, make decisions about what you want. It's okay to be selfish in this moment about what you want, because this very well could be the window to the rest of what your life could look like. And so you have to make that decision from a place of knowing who you are, knowing what you want, and not just trying to appease or mold yourself into something else because you think other people, like, that's what they want from you. So good stuff, Reid. I'm so glad that you came on to the What Are You Sporting About podcast. I loved learning more about athletes to athletes and how you guys are serving these student athletes and their parents to navigate through the recruiting process, but also giving them real life, tough love, all the things that we need to just be great people and do great things. So guys, I want to remind you, look, we talked about a lot of things. So I want you to go to prosportlawyer.com and get a copy of the What Are You Sporting About book. I feel like there's a lot of things that were just popping off in this conversation that really highlight some of the conversations we have in this book, including just knowing who you are and not forgetting about you as a dreamer. What are the things that you wanted to accomplish in this world before other people started putting their spin on your dreams, right? So go ahead, get your book at prosportlawyer.com, and then check out the NIL Combine. You can get access to this, recordings, video, audio, transcripts, and the playbook to help you really level up, not just in your life, but also in your career. Now that we have name, image, and likeness, people are coming at student athletes from all angles. And so this is your opportunity to definitely make sure that you can close the gap on a lot of things that may be missing, not just in your personal life, but also how you are navigating entrepreneurism as a student athlete. So get access to this right now at bit.ly/NIL Combine-all access. That is all caps. It is available now. Go ahead and get it. And as always, I am Sivonnia DeBarros, the protector of athletes. It is my pleasure every week to bring you content, to bring you guests, to bring you the information that is going to support you and guide you to your very next level. Make sure you go and subscribe to What Are You Sporting About so you never miss an episode. Until next time, guys, I will check you all later. Bye.
For joining us this week on What Are You Sporting About podcast. Make sure to visit our website, prosportlawyer.com, where you can subscribe to the show in iTunes, Stitcher, or whatever your favorite platform is, so you'll never miss a show. And while you're at it, if you found value in the show, we'd appreciate a rating on iTunes or iHeartRadio. Or if you'd simply tell a friend about the show, that would help us out too. If you like the show, you might want to check out our book, What Are You Sporting About? Attorney Sivonnia DeBarros is available for private consulting at sldebarros.com. And remember, we're here to educate, support, and guide you in your journey to success, because we're all sporting about something.